In our story today, we will see the importance of teamwork when a group of good Samaritans go above and beyond to save a kitten who fell into a very dangerous place. The kitten was completely traumatized by this experience, but fortunately, it found some kind and compassionate people who did everything they could to get it out. This is their story. The kitten had been missing for days, and its desperate meows could be heard echoing through the narrow alleyways between the buildings. Its tiny body trembled with fear as it looked around for its mother, but she was nowhere to be seen. It had tried to call out to her, but all that came out was a weak meow that sounded more like a cry for help. And that's exactly what happened. A man named Karim was passing by, and he couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy for the scared little creature. He stopped in his tracks and called out to see if anyone was around. No one seemed to be paying attention to the kitten's cries, so he decided to take matters into his own hands. Karim was joined by two other men who were just as determined to find the kitten as he was. They searched high and low, but the little thing was nowhere to be seen. Just when they were about to give up hope, they heard a faint meowing sound coming from a narrow opening between two buildings. As they approached, they could see that the opening led to a dark and narrow space that was too small for adults to enter. Without hesitation, Karim grabbed a rope ladder and climbed through the opening. The others held the rope taut to make sure he didn't fall. Inside, the air was thick with dust, and the only light came from a small opening at the far end. Karim coughed and stumbled over debris as he made his way through the tight space. When he finally reached the far end, he saw something that made him gasp. In front of him was a small room with a hole in the wall that let in a sliver of light. And in that sliver of light sat the kitten, mewing pitifully. It was dirty and scared, but it was alive. Without wasting any time, Karim carefully picked up the kitten and cradled it in his arms. The moment he felt its tiny body in his hands, a wave of relief washed over him. He had found the kitten. But now he needed to get it out of there. He turned around and started to climb back through the opening, taking care not to drop the kitten. As he emerged into the bright sunlight, the other two men rushed to help him with the kitten. One of them, whose name was Youssef, couldn't help but smile when he saw the kitten in Karim's arms. "Well done," he said, reaching out to take the kitten, but the moment he did, the kitten let out a loud hiss. Youssef pulled his hand back quickly, taken aback by the sudden reaction. Karim, who had expected this, wasn't surprised. He knew that the kitten was scared and that it would take some time before it would be comfortable being touched by strangers. "Don't worry, Youssef," he said calmly. "It's just scared. Let me take it." Taking the kitten from Youssef, Karim began stroking its back slowly and gently, trying to soothe it. As he did, the kitten's body began to relax and its angry meows turned into soft purrs. Karim continued to stroke the kitten until it was fast asleep in his arms. He looked over at Youssef and the third man, who was named Omar, and smiled. "Now we need to find this little guy a home," he said. They knew that they couldn't just leave the kitten in its current state, so they decided to take it to a local animal shelter where it could get the care and attention it needed. The staff at the shelter were happy to take in the kitten, but they were also surprised by its story. "This is definitely a special case," the shelter manager said. "We'll make sure that the kitten gets the love and care it needs to make a full recovery." At first, the kitten was still very scared, and it took some time for it to warm up to the shelter staff. But with patience and love, it eventually began to come out of its shell. Meanwhile, Karim, Youssef, and Omar couldn't stop thinking about the kitten. They had formed a bond with the little animal during the rescue operation, and they wanted to know how it was doing. So a few days later, they returned to the shelter to check in on their furry friend. When they arrived, they were greeted by the sight of a healthy, happy kitten playing with a ball of yarn. It was no longer the scared, dirty animal they had found in the alley. It was amazing to see how much it had improved in just a few days. The men were overjoyed to see that the kitten was doing well, but they couldn't help but wonder what had caused it to be abandoned in the first place. The shelter staff informed them that the kitten had most likely been separated from its mother during the recent heavy rains. The downpour had been so intense that it had washed away the kitten's home and left it stranded in the alley. Despite the kitten's ordeal, its strong will to survive had helped it to make it through the tough time. The men were relieved to hear that the kitten was okay, but they knew that it wouldn't be staying at the shelter for long. Each of them wanted to adopt the kitten and give it a loving home. After much deliberation, they decided to make a big surprise for the kitten. They would build it a cat house in Karim's backyard. The backyard was large and spacious, and the men were determined to make it a place where the kitten could roam freely and feel safe. With the help of friends and family, they built a sturdy and cozy cat house for the kitten. It had everything the little animal needed: food, water, a warm bed, and plenty of toys to keep it entertained. On the day of the big surprise, the men brought the kitten to its new home. At first, the kitten was hesitant to explore its new surroundings, but with some encouragement from Karim, it began to venture out. The moment the kitten stepped outside, it began to run and play, exploring every nook and cranny of its new domain. As the sun set, the kitten curled up in its cozy bed inside the cat house. The men watched as it drifted off to sleep, and they couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. They had given this abandoned kitten a second chance at life, and they were committed to making sure that it never went hungry or without love again. In the months that followed, the kitten thrived in its new home. It grew into a beautiful, healthy cat and became a beloved member of the community. The men continued to care for the cat, and they were rewarded with years of love and companionship. One day, as the men were relaxing in Karim's backyard, they couldn't help but reminisce about the day they had rescued the kitten. They talked about how their lives had been changed by the experience and how it had brought them closer together. As they sat there talking, the cat rubbed against their legs, purring contentedly. In that moment, they knew that their bond with the cat was unbreakable and they wouldn't trade it for the world. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Please share your thoughts in the comments.